Well, Pete Buttigieg did not get U.S. ambassador to China. Luckily, Joe Biden found somebody who's honestly worse. Bob Iger is apparently one of the leading contenders there. Let's throw this report up there on the screen. Now, if you don't know who Bob Iger is, he's the chairman of Disney Corporation, former CEO of that company. And I want to say, it actually makes me sad because I think Bob Iger is a genius whenever it comes to entertainment. On China, I actually read the guy's book, and he brags about flying to Beijing and to Shanghai and basically groveling at the feet of the Chinese Communist Party to let him open new Disney worlds, and about how they're trying to make and pivot more of their revenue for that company, all at the total behest of China, which culminates, we covered it here, that Mulan story. This is, again, the man who worked with not just the Chinese Communist Party, the literal concentration camp authorities, and thanked them in the credits of Mulan for their assistance in making that movie. This entire movie, the whole strategy behind all of this was to make more money in China and to basically bow before the Chinese Communist Party, being like, please give us larger access to your markets. So if you want to know why movies suck and everything just blows up all the time, it's to appeal to an international audience lacking cultural characteristics. Iger was one of the chief people who was in charge there. He has good relationships with them, but not for the right reasons. And he has never once apologized for any of this. Disney, to this day, stands by their decision to being like, well, you have to work with foreign governments whenever you film abroad. Again, thanking the literal concentration camp authorities in Xinjiang. That is the person who they are floating now for U.S. ambassador to China.
And this is where the conversation about qualifications gets a little squirrely. He's qualified.
Yeah, he's qualified.
He's got a lot of experience, but it's experience at doing what exactly?
Yes.
Look, I mean, as we've talked about here with China, the whole game is they understand us better than we understand us, and have used our own capitalist system and obsession with money and obsession with the bottom line to totally get their way in all of their dealings with this country, with disastrous results oftentimes for working class people as jobs have bled overseas and all of that. So Bob Iger in the running, at least, to be ambassador to China. So what did Pete end up with?
Oh, right.
So reportedly, Pete has been sort of cabinet shopping. He thought these comments were leaked about how he said he wanted a real cabinet post, not some staff level position, and turned up his nose at OMB, turned up his nose at VA secretary, because what he really wanted was something with gravitas that gave him his foreign policy cred for his future presidential run. Gross. And it was gross that the Biden administration was sort of going along with this to a point. I guess what he really wanted at the beginning was ambassador to UN.
Yes.
That didn't work out for him. I suspect Kamala doesn't want Pete to have that great of a post because he's a potential future threat for her. Just saying and throwing that out there. So what does Pete end up with? Something that is not particularly glamorous, which is transportation secretary. Important, but maybe not with all the glamour that Pete was hoping for. But he did his best in this weird, acceptance speech to try to put a glamorous spin on his new position. Let's take a listen to that.
I've also had a personal love of transportation ever since childhood. More than once as a college student, I would convince a friend to travel nearly 1,000 miles back to Indiana with me on Amtrak. Though I know that in this administration, I will at best aspire to be the second biggest train enthusiast around. I spent a spring break in graduate school aboard a cargo ship studying there. Travel in my mind is synonymous with growth, with adventure, even love, so much so that I proposed to my husband, Chasten, in an airport terminal. So don't let anybody tell you that O'Hare isn't romantic.
I'd rather gouge my eyes out and watch that again.
From a young age,
it's so
I've
insincere.
always loved transportation.
Yeah, be honest. This is a stepping stone on my road to a presidential run again. We all know it. Everybody knows the truth, man. That's what everybody knows the truth. You don't have to concoct some story about love. I mean, what is this, Love Actually? And look, I love Love Actually.
Great movie, by the way.
Leave it to Love Actually to talk about love in the airport. Good Lord.
He's just he has that suck up vibe too from a child. I've always loved transportation. Weird acceptance speech from Pete for his cabinet position. But congratulations. He's the first. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, Kamala and Pete they just drive me crazy. Like in a way that they get under my skin.
I know.
It's the lack of insincerity, the falseness, fakery, all of that.
Well, it's honestly not even the pure ambition.
Yeah.
I
respect that. I always
pure
do.
ambition.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But it's the attempt to code it in idealism that makes it awful.
Yeah.
That's what really makes it awful. If
It's like West Wing brain.
Will to power, and I'm ambitious, and I should run things, and here's how I'm going to get there. Okay, I can deal with that. But it's when you try to pretend like you're some idealist and not just like fitting your morals to whatever you think is politically beneficial. That's the part that I simply cannot handle.
Totally.
It is interesting. Pete's the first one of the presidential rivals of Joe Biden in the Democratic primary who's gotten any sort of position. I kind of thought, I think Amy was probably up for the VP slot potentially until the George Floyd protests broke open, and that obviously killed her chances. But no one else, Sir Warren, who deluded herself into thinking she might get something, is obviously left off the list. Surprise,
But
surprise.
Krystal, they're just not going to pull anybody out of the Senate.
Oh, that's right. I forgot.
Yeah.
They were totally going to give her Treasury Secretary until the Senate didn't work out.
Yeah.
So too bad for her. So anyway, there you go.
There you
Pete,
go.
we're stuck with him for the rest of our lives.
That's right.
We're rising for you after this.